And today's speaker is me. I'm the Senior Director of Research and Education in Exponential, and this is all content that we've pulled directly from the library, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into the content. Let's talk about A/B testing. What is online or A/B testing anyway? Like, let's just make sure we're all on the same page, right? Okay, so for example, an A/B test would be like this. So version A, that's what we mean by A in the A/B, might be, oh, well, on one version of the donation page, I'm going to show this picture. And version B is, well, I think that it says for 200 or more, it'll give me an additional thing, but I'm not showing it. So version B is actually going to show that additional thing. This would be what an A/B test is. It's which of these donation pages, okay, which of these images are going to result in influencing the most people to actually make a donation. We're going to measure the actual amount of donations that occur. Okay? Now, you should be aware of something. When this test happens, it's not like they see both of them and then they kind of look back and forth. They're like, okay, looking over here, looking over here, looking over here. That's not what they experience. What they experience is that they only see one. So one person will go and then without even knowing it, they'll see version A. Their page will load version A. And then we'll either watch, do they leave or do they donate? And then another person will come in, again, without knowing it, they'll be shown version B. And again, we'll watch, do they leave or do they donate? Okay? They have no idea. And there are even little technological things that are there to keep them from, in most cases, unless they're like jumping from device to device, different days, usually at most cases, they won't even have a chance to see the other version. They'll only see the one if the technology is set up really well, okay? And that's what an A/B test is, okay? And just in case you were wondering, the winner was actually version B. It increased donation revenue by 11.5%, okay? And here's the thing. You know what I love about A/B testing nowadays? I mean, if you asked me 15 years ago, it'd be different, right? When I was first in this. But you don't need much. This is free. Google Optimize, Google Analytics, again, there's a free version of that. And if you're doing emails, there's things like MailChimp, and they have a free version as well, and you can actually run tests, based on your list size. So there's, each of these have premium options, but you really don't need much to do it. And these are pretty intuitive programs. They're not really difficult to learn. Okay, so the real question that we need to answer right now is this. Why bother with A/B testing? What's the point? Why get into it? Well, let's answer that with a few experiments. Let me show you one. Hot off the press, actually, it's online, so I guess there's no press, right? Donation page experiment. As you can see, here's the gift array. Same donation page, and this is a desktop version. Okay, this was isolated to the desktop, all right, for an organization called CaringBridge. Version A, there it is, donation page, pretty straightforward. You kind of got your background, you go down. I've seen this template a lot. Version B, what's different? Well, right here, there's a little message comes down. It says reminder, and it kind of slides down in. And it says reminder, the family of Kathy will match your donation today up to $25,000. So I guess the hypothesis here is that when we include this message for desktop users, they might be more likely to donate. That's not all. Look at version C. Can you see a minor difference? Same text, except is matching all donations today. So the real question that we have here is there a difference in performance between any of these three versions? What do you think? I want you to think right now. Just make a guess right now. What do you think? Are you for version A? Are you for version B? Are you for version C? Okay, you might have to squint a little bit, but just take that moment and think that. Now that you've got your answer, you'd like to know, right? Let me show the answer. Version B resulted in a 24% relative increase in donations, and that is a statistically significant result. And you know what the interesting thing is? No difference statistically for version C. So there was something about the way this was worded that resulted in the increase. Let's look at another one. What do you think? This is an email appeal. Okay, let's put donation pages aside. We'll come back to it. Let's take a look. Which one do you think would have a greater effect on donations? Which one would result in more donations? really long email, oh my goodness, or, 550 words, which some of you would argue is already long. But what do you think? Is all that extra words, is that going to make a difference? Just take a moment and make your guess. 550 words or 2,200 words? If you chose version B, you're correct. Version B resulted in a 106% relative increase in donations, statistically significant result. Wow, would you believe it, right? Let's go back to donation pages. This is a general donation page. This is kind of like your catch-all, that one page that you might send all different parts of your site to, okay? Version A, lots of text. Version B, minimal text. Now, this is a general donation page, so keep that in mind. Which one would you vote for? Which one would you vouch for? If somebody in your meeting came up and said, I want to do this, would you go for it? Wouldn't you? What would your choice be? Well, if you guessed version A, you're correct. Lots of text in this case resulted in a 150% increase in donations. And then finally, we have a year-end campaign donation page. So as you can see, this particular organization, they kind of align with the Christmas holiday, all right? So the question is video better on their campaign donation page, or is the text better? Which one do you think did a better job in inspiring the most donations? And there is a winner. Well, if you answered version A, yes, you actually would have seen a 500-some% increase in donations. Oh my goodness, that is not fake. Okay, that is a very real test with a very real result. Which brings me to my next point. How many of you answered all of those questions correctly? Some of you? All of you? Did you even get one right? Maybe at least one? Did you get two or three? If you didn't get, very many right, it's okay. All right, it's okay. This is why online testing and optimization is so important, especially for those of us that are involved in online fundraising, right? We're in development, we're trying to raise money online. Testing and optimization is really important. Why? Because we don't know everything. There's a gap between what we actually know and what we need to know about our donors. And it's not just restricted to people that don't do testing. It's people that do testing as well. I'm no expert, okay? I just would say I'm a decent tester, right? And I've just accumulated knowledge over tests. But just because I've seen a test run multiple ways does not mean I am foolproof, guaranteed to get that same exact result, right? And our issue mainly is that, well, fundraisers are from Mars and donors are from Venus. It's just this disconnect, okay, between you, between your donors, and even between me and, any particular donors I'm trying to inspire generosity with. It's, even if you are a donor yourself to another organization, that doesn't necessarily mean you understand your donors. And that's the challenge, right? It shouldn't be that way, but it is. In fact, there are typically three kind of problems that plague us, okay? And I'll tell you why this happens in a minute. There's a very scientific reason for this. But the three kind of plagues, the flaws that we have to deal with, start with one. We don't see what our donors see. And if you don't believe me, then look at this experiment. Here's a version. Again, we have a version A and a version B. Now, I just ran a workshop with email last week in Dallas, and it was so funny. I had an attendee. At the end of the workshop, she was just guessing them correctly every time. And I was like, how is it that you feel like you're getting it? She's like, well, she's like, this is how I get to the right answer. I choose the one that, she's like, I look at the one that I like, and then I choose the one that I don't like as the one that's going to win, and it wins every time. And it made me laugh because she liked the well-designed emails, okay? She liked the very well-designed, polished emails we were learning about email. But then it was these ugly emails that were getting all these donations, right? And to her, this is to all of us, right? We were all trained and taught a certain way, right? To her, she's seeing, hey, this is professional, this is polished, this is nicely designed, right? But the donor just sees marketing. And they're just like, marketing, click. Especially if you're asking for money in an email, how are you going to ask for it in a really non-personal marketing kind of way. That's not what you do if you would have the time. You would want to meet with them one-on-one, but that we don't have the time. So if you take this ugly email, a fundraiser might think it's unprofessional, boring, and plain, and like, oh my goodness, it's not good. Like, no, you need to add some pizzazz to that. But the donor actually sees an email from a friend. It opens them up a little bit. It allows them to connect and actually see your appeal for what it's worth. And that's why we often see more donations with this type of thing. I heard a quote once, there are no bad students, just bad teachers. And the problem is that, well, we've been taught bad things over the years, right? Okay? Another issue that we have is we fail to hear what our donors are saying. What do I mean by this? Well, for every person that says yes, there are always more people saying no. Think about the funnel. Everybody heard of the funnel, the methodology? Like, okay, you start at the top, right? You know, for example, take email. Yep, 10,000 emails sent and 5% undelivered, so 95% delivery rate. So we're moving down this way, correct? But here's the thing. Only 26% open. I mean, and that's actually pretty okay, decent rate compared to what people are achieving. But there's 74% that are saying no. What does that tell us? Right? I've seen open rates as high as 50 or 60%. Okay? It's achievable. And then those that clicked, 12% click-through, 80. Listen, you know what I see? Sometimes I only see click-through rates as good as 3%. That means that there's 97% people saying no. Do you see? The point that I'm trying to make by looking at this graphic is that you think you're doing great, right? You've got 25 donors, but really, that's out of 10,000. Like, there are so many more people that are not even connecting with you, okay? And for some odd reason, we don't focus on the people that aren't connecting. We're just hyper-focused on those that are. And we're trying to make ourselves feel good about that. But I just want to wake you up for a minute. You can't be focused completely on just what looks okay. You can't forget the people that are saying no, okay? And we're biased to kind of forget about it because it's hard to deal with. We actually have to think about how to address these people, how to capture their attention and their interest, okay? And the third issue that we have to deal is we fail to speak in our donor's language, okay? So what if I were to go to your website, or I were to call your staff, or I were to go to your social media and I said, if I'm your ideal donor, why should I give to you rather than some other organization or at all? Is that a valid, fair question to ask? That's a fair question. Well, guess what? We did this, okay? We did this. We did a whole study where we asked this question. We went to you want to see some of the responses that we received? Check it out. How did nonprofit organizations respond? We don't ask for donations. So I'm literally asking just for a reason. I'm showing motivation, but they're just going to leave it entirely up to me. No, you're not going to inspire generosity that way, okay? Especially if you know what makes this organization special and you're not answering it when they're asking for it. Another one, thank you for your message. You can learn more about our... Seriously? Was this organization that lazy? I mean, come on, right? And you expect people to want to support what you're doing, and if they ask you, like, I'm not saying you, but you see what I'm saying? Oh, and here's one of my favorite. We go to a donation page, fraud alert. Oh, and only click the donate button once because you are not smart enough to know that if you don't click it once and we don't highlight it in red and we don't make big, bold font, you're going to mess up and we're going to be so upset that we have to process your refund. I mean, so think about, if you were to have that kind of tone with somebody like a major donor, one-on-one, what would you expect, right? And that's the thing. People are implying these types of emotions, these social cues, okay? I talked about that last week in this course that I ran. Okay, people are seeing those things, right? And if you're interested in seeing all the different types of responses and all the issues, you're certainly welcome to. Here you'll have the slides. Let's move forward. My question is how is it that we're so vulnerable to missing the mark? Why is this a reality even for us? Like why? Okay? Well, there is a reason. One piece of vocabulary that you can share with others is a little thing called pre-attentive processing. So it's really not entirely our fault, okay? The problem is that Our brains are wired to cut things out, all right? We take in millions and millions and millions of bits every second from all the different sensory functions that we have, from our eyes to our ears, even the hairs within our ears for our balance system, okay? Lighting, like there's so much that goes into our brains that has to be processed. And what happens is the brain becomes an expert at cutting things out. So what happens if you have a brain injury, for example, is that a lot of times those people with brain injury, they lose their brain temporarily, hopefully, just temporarily, loses the ability to cut things out. That's why their sensitivity to light is so, they can't go into a room with light because it's like there's too much to process. Their consciousness cannot handle it, okay? So those are people with injuries, but even people without injuries, all right, everything's working great. You don't even know that you're not thinking about this other thing. You don't even realize that your brain is prioritizing what you want to see and what you want to think and what you want to believe. And that's why I have to be in the library constantly. That's why I have to test. That's why nobody is safe. No PhD is safe. I'm not safe. Nobody is safe, okay? Because this is just how it is. That's why we test. Plus, I mean, honestly, there just comes a point where you can't really know what's going on just by looking at what others are doing. When I say knowing what's going on, I mean knowing what's going on with you and your organization and your donors. For example, you can say, I have constant headaches and dizziness, and that might be related to what? You know what that could be? You go onto Google, it can be anything from a tumor, oh my gosh, to just migraines, or maybe you just didn't eat enough. The spectrum is so wide, okay? You ever try to use Google to diagnose yourself? I mean, maybe sometimes it works, but we're often going to think of the worst possible case scenario. That's why you don't use Google all the time to diagnose yourself. At some point, okay, at some point, you're going to need to go to a doctor if it's bad enough, right? And get your own tests done, okay? If you got headaches and dizziness, it's constant, probably going to need to get an MRI done. That's the only way to rule things out, right? In the same way, let me tell you, no web article, no best practices seminar, even the ones that we do, will help you get the exact answer for you and your donors. I'm sorry, but you have to test. You have to test, okay? So what can we do to fill in these gaps? Well, I just told you, I'm going to say it again, this time in the official slide form, testing and optimization. You know what the best part about this is you don't need 8 years of school. You don't need to be some scientific person. You don't even need to really know math that well, okay? It's something that you can do, okay? My goal by the end of today is to convince you that it's achievable, okay? Right? For example, let me show you a great example of how one organization used testing to uncover something really awesome, okay? This nonprofit had learned a lot of things over a period of experiments, and they were doing inline article offers. So what I mean by that is, like, they have a lot of articles on their site, and they got a lot of decent traffic for the articles, okay? They have articles, but somewhere in the middle of the article, they were asking for something, okay? Right? Here's some of the things that they learned, right? I have all the experiment references here, actually, so you can find it in the library yourself. So one thing, at one point, they're offering an assessment, which is like a free offer to start a relationship. This is email acquisition, right? Email, okay? They're trying to acquire email. They're like, what's going to work better? A banner ad looking like, or just text in the middle of an article? Now, some people are like, oh, that's just too much text. They're never going to read that, except that they did. Holy monkey. Yes, I said that. I said holy monkey. 1,871% increase in clicks. That's crazy. All because they changed this kind of banner ad into text, right? Who'd have thought? But they didn't stop there. They said, well, wait a minute. So if we can get people's email addresses this way, can we get people to give gifts right away? Well, they ran another experiment. They're like, okay, we're going to use the text approach, We're going to ask for a gift. What was the result? Fortunately, that didn't really pan out, okay? That's all right. You know, sometimes you need to just get an email address first. Really. You need to start that relationship first. Maybe the people that were visiting those articles just didn't have enough connection, okay? But you know what? They didn't stop there. They said, okay, well, let's go back to that text-only offer, and let's say, should it be in the middle of the article? So here's some article here, there's some article here, or should it be at the bottom of the article at the end? Like, because they're thinking, well, we're interrupting people. Maybe people are reading the articles and they actually will connect with them better. What was the result? Hey, they learned something more. So on top of the 2,000% increase in clicks, they got another 100%. That's great. But there was one thing that they hadn't figured out yet. You want to know what that was? Should we really be offering the assessment, or should we be doing like an ebook? Right? I mean, there are a lot of different things that you can use to acquire email addresses, to attract people to say, yeah, I want to get to know you more. Yes, I'd love to hear more about your organization. Well, but which one is it? That was their challenge. They didn't know what the best offer was. Okay? So they ran a test. Should we offer the assessment, or should we give a free ebook on the topic? Okay? What do you think? Was there a difference? Well, lo and behold, the ebook not only attracted more email addresses, but immediately thereafter, they were able to attract 1,000% plus more donations. Okay? The way this relationship started over here was far more effective, okay, to getting somebody like interested and excited about what this organization was doing than this. Guess what? They would have never found that out if they would have just listened to best practices, okay? Because you know, best practices and articles will tell you that people don't read ebooks, okay? Or they might tell you this, or maybe that, you know what? I've heard all kinds of crazy things, but here's what I'm here to tell you, is that you can be the doctor. And we're going to teach you how to be the doctor, okay? You can be the doctor. But wait, there's more, okay? You know what another great thing about testing and optimization is that it mitigates risk. I don't know about you, but I don't think there's a single nonprofit that I've ever spoken with that doesn't hate risk, okay? Well, and it makes sense, right? You're dealing with other people's money, I think, most of the time, right? And you're going to have to give an account of how you're spending that money. That's reason enough to want to go crazy taking risks, right? You know what I love about testing is that you can actually have an idea and you can test it, and if something isn't looking like it's working, you can shut it off. You don't have to find out 3 months later and $10,000 less later. You can find out right away. I love testing for that, okay? And you don't even have to test all of your traffic. You got a lot of traffic, you can only test a portion. It's awesome, mitigates risk. Another thing, it gives you credibility, okay? It's one thing to go into a room with an idea. And you know what? If all you have is an idea, you better have a relationship with that person, because they're probably not going to buy into it if you don't have both. I mean, that's just the world we live in. That's why there are politics, even in organizations. But the wonderful thing about testing is that it gives you something more than just a relationship. It gives you data. And there's nothing that looks more foolish than somebody choosing something that's not data-driven when the data says otherwise, okay? That brings me to my next point, okay? You're going to find people that also value your ideas, also value data, and also value figuring out what's really going to work and really going to serve the organization, okay? Because you know what? Sometimes people are just scared. I mean, I've been in communities before where you put on a patch that says something about you and what you believe, and all of a sudden, all these people will come in and be like, hey, they were the ones too scared to do it. But you were the one bold enough, and now you were attracting kind of a following. And finally, as I was getting at, I don't know if you have this kind of person in your organization, but they're always pointing out what they don't like or what seems to be wrong. They're always kind of like the Debbie Downer. Sorry if anybody named Debbie here, I don't really mean, you know what I mean? But do you see what I'm saying? They're always like, well, I don't know about that. well, have you thought about this? Where they're always shooting the ideas down. Well, guess what? You say, well, let's test it, okay? There's low risk. Okay, let's test it. And then let's get the data. And then let's just say you test it and they're like, well, I like the other version. How can somebody choose a version that is statistically significant, more likely to lose money for the organization? It looks foolish, okay? Testing helps those people identify themselves for who they really are, and they lose their power, okay? Testing, my friends, is your Trojan horse to getting things done in your organization. Testing is like, it gives you a license to be curious and to be kind of ambitious without looking like you're trying to be threatening or challenging, okay? Because you aren't trying to say that your idea is better. You are just wanting to know what's best for the organization, and you have an interesting idea, and you're willing to test other people's ideas too, and that's why you want it. It's the Trojan horse, okay? Especially in a not-for-profit, right? And so, is there more to this than, say, learning how to use popular tools? Guys, I just grabbed this off of Smart Insights. These, you know how many, I think there's 40 different A/B testing tools that are out there. Here's the free one that I just mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, but there's a lot of paid versions, okay? So you can learn how to use any of these, and in fact, we'll talk about, we'll actually have a resource for you where you can learn how to use Google Optimize for free, like a complete walkthrough, okay? We're gonna have that resource for you. But is there more to testing than just learning how to use these little tools? Well, there is, okay? There is. Maybe you've heard about somebody that's ran a test and they weren't really taken seriously, or maybe they just didn't get the result they were looking for and then they got shut down. You wanna know why? It's because they didn't have these 5 keys to success, okay? I'm going to give you 5 keys to success, and these are specific to not-for-profits and not-for-profit testing, because that's what we know here. I came from the for-profit space. I spent 10 years testing in the for-profit space with big companies like H&R Block, Verizon Wireless, even startups, you name it. But with Next After, for the past 2 years, I've been intimately involved with the experimentation, and I've been in the library. We have over 1,300 some experiments, coming on 1,400, right? So I want to give you 5 keys to making sure your A/B testing is successful. So by the end of this webinar, you're going to have everything that you need, and you're going to have a bird's eye view of what it's going to take to get it done in your organization. Here's the first key to success, okay? First key. You need to focus on a traceable, meaningful, numeric result, okay? This is so incredibly important, okay? The question is what is meaningful? And it's to somebody else. Listen, you're trying to get others, you're gonna have to get others to agree to it, right? You can't just go rogue unless you are the CEO. You can't just go rogue and just do it. Others are gonna have to agree to it at some point, okay? So the only way you're gonna get somebody to agree to it is if it's something that they're also interested in, something meaningful. So the question is well, what's meaningful? Typically it's money. It's a result that impacts money, so donation revenue. Who is not going to be more interested in figuring out how to get more people to give to your organization? Because when more money's coming in the organization, there's more things that you can do. Jobs feel more secure, okay? More impact that you can be making in the field. There's so much more you can do if you just had more donation revenue, right? That's the one fail-safe thing. So the question is how do we go about getting revenue? How do we go about getting donation revenue? Well, there are 3 primary strategies, okay? 3. Here they are. You ready for it? Got to get more of the right people to show up. We call that optimizing traffic. Okay, here's the first of the 3 strategies. You got, let's just say that you're like, yep, I know when I get them this far, they're in. Okay, so now the question is how do you get more people in? Okay, right? That's the thing, and it's all connected to revenue. The second thing is to optimize conversion rate. getting more people to say, yes, I want to give. We call that conversion rate online, okay, or donation rate. And the third one is to get more people to say, heck yes, okay? You know what I love about the not-for-profit space? I love that I can run a test that gets more people excited and gets them to want to give more, okay? You know, I can't just go and increase the price of a product randomly. If I'm on a for-profit site, I could get into trouble, okay, if I don't do it a certain way. Here, I can just say something differently on the donation page, or I can tweak something, and believe it or not, I can legitimately inspire more generosity. Love it. If you're not focused on one of these three things, okay, it's going to be hard to get the attention of somebody else in your organization unless they are really, really, really hyper-focused on a mission, like I just want more people to read this, or I just want more people to see this, okay? That's still traffic, okay? But 9 out of 10 times, it's money. And we have a little graphic for this. We call it the flux capacitor of revenue maximization, F-Quorum. Does this look familiar? It's actually a little Back to the Future, okay? It's you know, Back to the Future, right? You guys remember that old 80s movie? It kind of looks like that. It basically says that when you work one of these three things or you work them in combination, it all comes together. And let me show you. This is the thing that I love about being focused on one or all of these three things. These meaningful, traceable, numeric results, okay? Just follow along. You don't have to do the math. Let me show you. If 2% of my 100,000 donate, and they give on average $70, this is how much money I'm going to have. Okay, follow? So if I get a measly 26% relative increase in just one area, let's say conversion rate, guess what? Look at my money. It's already up to $176,000. But what if I get a measly 26% increase in two areas like traffic and conversion? Look at my money. Now I'm up 59%. Okay? Even better, what if I get it in 3 areas? Increase average gift conversion rate and web traffic. I have just doubled my revenue. I have just completely doubled my revenue by getting these little measly 20% sum gains. So when you focus on any of these 3 metrics, okay, you're bound to see some success. And if you stay tuned, by the end of the webinar, I'm going to show you one test that you can do to help increase one of these metrics. It's so simple, okay? It's almost guaranteed to help you see something. Almost, not, you know, it's never 100%, right? That's why we test, okay? So stay with me. That is the first key. You need to focus on traffic, conversion rate, or average gift. Something that has some direct connection to revenue. Otherwise, you're gonna be hard-pressed to get people to care about what you're doing, okay? Or it's just gonna be up to your charm and your wit and your good looks or your fun dress or whatever it is that you do to motivate people. But listen, I don't want you to be there. I want you to go to something that I know is going to work, okay? Let's move on. Key to success number 2, okay? So we talked about the first one, a traceable, meaningful numeric result. The second thing is you need to be able to create a challenger or a treatment. That's what we call a treatment. You need to be able to create some kind of a challenger that actually teaches you something, okay? Here's what I mean. You don't have to zoom in on this experiment to get this point, okay? Can you just, without even zooming in, can you see that there's a really big difference between these two? So what happens if the treatment loses, which it did? What happens? Okay? Well, I don't know. What did we learn? Where do we go from here? Right? Guess what? We don't know. You want to know why we don't know? Okay? We don't know because there are too many changes. There's this, like, right? Okay, well, you know what? Okay, then let's run a different test. This one was submitted by a student. Was there any difference? What do you think? No difference. This test is equally useless. Equally useless. Okay? And I'm going to tell you why in a minute. Just stay tuned. So how do you solve for this issue? Okay? This is why people, if people that start off their testing and they hit a rut right away. Because right away, if they lose, it's all hinged on whether they win or lose, and not hinged on whether they're working towards that, right? Here are 3 things that you can do to solve for this, okay? The first thing, here's the point that I want to make to you, and this is a little bonus. You can't just be testing for a result. You need to be testing for a learning. Just like I said to you before, you need to make something that teaches you something, okay? Because if you run a test and you don't get the result that you want, but it teaches you where to go next to get it, you're already still winning. You're in that direction. You've got momentum, right? And in order to do that, you need to start by taking a problem-solving approach. Let me ask you a question. When you go to the doctor, do they just shove Tylenol down your throat? Do they just say, go take some Advil? No, in fact, you get mad at those doctors that don't try and understand your situation, that don't take you seriously, that don't try to figure out what's really going on. Just ask somebody that has a condition that has had a lot of research and a lot of discovery in the last 10 years. There's nothing that makes them more mad than a doctor that's got knowledge that's 10 plus years dated and they don't even know where to go. They just kind of like, they don't ask you any questions or anything. That's what you need to do though. If you're going to take a doctor-like approach, you need to learn to solve for something. You don't just change stuff because you want to change stuff. You want to change something that's solving a problem that already exists on your page, in your email, the way that you create your emails. Okay, even the ads, the offers, you're trying to solve a problem. And if you stay tuned, I'm going to hook you up with a resource that gives you all those types of questions that you should be asking. Okay? All the types of questions. The second thing you need to do is you need to be able to distinguish your challenger clearly enough so that somebody else that looks at what you're doing can say, oh, I see what you're testing, right? You want to understand a classic example of that? I got to tell a story. So there was this one Halloween where I had a bunch of extra candy, right? And I had some Hershey Kisses, and I was like, I got to get rid of these things. I don't want to eat them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to eat all those Hershey Kisses. I want to try and get rid of it. So I had an office. I had calls throughout the day. I had a team. I was like, I'm going to put it in a bowl. I'm going to be the nice manager, I guess, and leave it out so people could take the candy. Okay? That's what I did. But you know what? I was getting a little irritated because nobody was taking the candy. I was not achieving my objective. Okay? Nobody's taking the candy. What's going on? So me, being the strange person that I am, became a little obsessed. And I said, okay, I've got to solve for this. I'm putting free candy out. I want them to take it, and they're not going to take it. But you see, when I started looking into the problem, that's when I came across a hypothesis. I ran across a property manager who kind of cleans up the office area. He's like, do you know who's got these Hershey Kisses? I keep finding these wrappers. I'm like, oh goodness. I didn't say anything, right? Like I got caught, but I didn't get caught, right? So maybe people weren't taking the Hershey Kisses because there's something about the wrapping. There's something like people weren't really, the problem was the wrapping, okay? That's the hypothesis. It's a problem that I'm going to solve. So you know what I did? I decided to run a test. My hypothesis, the problem that I want to solve is that fewer people take it because of the shape and messy packaging. So I said, I'm going to give them a very clean Hershey's miniatures. You've seen those before. They're relatively what? They're about the same size, maybe a little bit more on this side, okay, but it's about equal. The packaging is different, okay, but I think that's what's going to solve the problem, okay? I think because of this, it's a cleaner, it's easier, it just kind of doesn't get anywhere, and it's not really that messy. I think I'm going to be able to get more people to take the candy. So the question is, what was the result? 20% more. By golly, there were some people that weren't taking the candy because of the wrapping. So I was like, yeah, but it was only 20%. Stay tuned. I know, I keep saying stay tuned. I'll tell you where you can find the rest of the story because it didn't end there, okay? I wanted to see a 100% increase in consumption. I did find the key, but it took me a few tests to get there. So I'll tell you where to find that out, okay? Because yeah, I wasn't satisfied at that. I want my bowl to be empty, right? Does that make sense? Like, because I set up the test clear enough for you to understand, you could see what I learned. The packaging did have an effect, but it didn't affect everybody. It didn't affect the kind of result I was looking for, so I had to continue to test, okay? Which brings me to my third point, is you need to make sure your changes target the human psyche, okay? Why the human psyche? Because your visitors are people, and if you've been to any one of our webinars, you'll know that people don't give to the web or email, they give to people. They humanize your organization, not to, again, to some faceless organization, but to somebody they know and trust, okay? So you can't just be making changes. They have to have an effect on their emotions, on the way they perceive you, on the way they understand or connect to the cause. Does it make them angry? Does it make them more passionate? Does it connect with them better? That's why this experiment failed. I mean, honestly, seriously, why would you change the link to red? You want to make them more angry about the link coming? The blue is just as equally as visible as the red. What is that really doing to the human psyche? It's really not testing anything. That's why this test didn't really do anything, okay? So my point to you is that all of your changes need to be at least 2 layers deep. It's something physical on the page, okay? So this test here, okay, yeah. Physical, okay, I'm changing the link color. But you know what? Like, what if you change those to raw links? Because raw links are the kind of thing that people, real people send. They copy and paste raw links. Aha! That's where you get into the second layer. Is what is that change accomplishing in the mind and the emotions of the visitor? Okay? So that's my point to you. My point to you is that all of your changes need to be at least 2 layers deep. You can't just, I mean, otherwise, what do you learn? You learn nothing, okay? You learn nothing. You learn nothing that can be used everywhere else, especially in your direct mail campaigns. Did you know that your online testing can be used to inform your direct mail campaigns? It's possible. Key to success number 3. Key to success number 3, a good result is not enough. It also must be reliable. Check it out. So this is another experiment you can find in the library. Actually, you might not be able to access it, and I'll show you why. Okay, so here's, this is an organization that's trying to start a relationship by offering a free course. Looks like it's like folks that are having trouble with their teens, okay? So they had this question, well, what if we use Facebook video, okay? They had a hypothesis, it was well set up. Let's just use a video instead of a still image. What's the result going to be? Well, they ran the test. And what'd they find out? Yeah, 12% increase in email signups, except they're thinking, yeah, I got the win, but wait, only 46% increase in 46% level of confidence. And let me translate that for you. What does that really mean? It means that you're more likely to get tails when you call it than you are going to see that result. Okay, so you know what that really means? That means the result is no good. You're more likely to correctly call the coin once you catch it. You're more likely to call that correctly than you are to get that result if you run the test again. 48% confidence is not good, okay? That's the thing. We actually need to run the test long enough, okay, so that we get enough data so that we can be confident enough in our result. And here's the thing. The key to determining the proper confidence, Okay, there are tools that will help you calculate confidence. You can find those tools. You don't need to know any math. But the real question is how much confidence do I need? Well, the key is to look at the consequence of being wrong. Okay? So in the pharmaceutical industry, for example, where if somebody takes something and it could possibly result in death, I want to be 99.99% confident that death is not a side effect of my medicine. Because I could lose my whole company, go to jail, and all of that, right? They need a particularly high confidence level because the consequence is really bad. But for other things, like if you're just prototyping, You're not, maybe you only need 80% confidence. Okay? Why is it 80 and not 40 though? Okay? Why is it 80 and not 40? Well, let me help you understand what each of these percentages really mean. You ready for this? Check it out. Less than 1 in 100 chance of being wrong. That's what 99% level of confidence means. Okay? That's 99. So if you go 99.99, it gets even smaller. Man, that's pretty good. 1 in 20 is still good. Okay? You are a 1 in 20 chance of being wrong, your result being wrong. 1 in 10 is even not bad, but once you start getting below that, okay? Once you start getting below that, 1 in 5. That's when we start having problems, okay? That's why I'm saying, does this help? Does this help you get confidence in a proper perspective? That's why you can't have a 70% level of confidence and be okay. It's because now you're really, your risk of being wrong is really high, okay? And there are other questions, there are a couple other questions that you want to ask to make sure your test is reliable, but that's one of the main things, statistical hypothesis testing. But you know what the great news about that is that there are calculators out there that do all the math for you. All you have to do is plug in a couple numbers. But what you need to know is not the confidence number it's telling you, but you need to know, again, what do each of these numbers mean? And which one is right for your situation, for the level of risk that you're willing to take. Key to success number 4, you have to cheerlead your own practice. Love this quote. What I mean by practice is if you're a doctor and you have a practice, you need to cheerlead your team. You need to go out there and be active in helping people see that what you're doing is valuable in your organization. You can't just run the test and hope that people know about it. You actually have to go out there and talk about it, right? Number 1, you need to write stuff down, okay? People generally, for some odd reason, don't take things as seriously until you write it down or you organize your thoughts. Here's the problem that I had. Here are the steps, here's the pieces of data that told me that I do have a problem. Here's the thing that I'm testing to see if this problem exists, and here's the test I ran, and here's the results. Just bullet it out, write it down. People will take it more seriously instantly, okay? Because it looks like you put your thought into it. And the second thing is you actually have to go out there and tell the stories. You need to be able to share it, okay? And again, if you stay tuned, I'm going to give you a resource that teaches you how to do all this, okay? Here's the thing, best-selling authors don't just write a book. They typically promote it, they speak about it, socialize it, okay? Right? I mean, this happened to me. I went to some big conference I was speaking at, and they had a keynote. The guy who wrote Great by Choice and Good to Great, he just released a book called Great by Choice. Jim Collins, I think is his name, really popular author. But I was like, okay, great, right? And then I read the book Great by Choice. And you know what his speech was? It was literally a high-level overview of his book, Great by Choice. He was promoting his book using the keynote, and nobody realized it. That's how he tested his content, okay? So in the same way, we've got to think like that, okay? We've got to go out there and kind of get people kind of aware of what's going on, get them excited about it so they'll want to learn more. And then the 5th key to success, don't reinvent the wheel, okay? You should jumpstart your practice in the same way that other successful organizations have, all right? Don't take that risk all on your own. Use the learnings of others, okay? Now, the wonderful thing about Next After is that this is what we do. We design these wonderful, complex design of experiments. This is what you should test first, second, third, fourth, fifth, based on all the data. And the funny thing is that, hey, you may not know how to do that. You don't have that kind of time, but we got a solution for you. We've done about 50 of these types of heavy, mega, crazy analyses for people. I'm talking 300 slide presentations, okay? But you know what? There are like 5 tests on every single one that almost every organization needs to do. It's kind of like 5 problems that everybody has. I'm going to give you the first one, okay? Here's the first one, right? The first opportunity test that everybody looks like they need to do. Even when I go to an event, they're like, John, look at my page. Look at my page. I always point this out. It's increasing traffic to the donation page. You know why I love, this could be any page, ad, or email that typically sends traffic to your main donation page. And the reason why I test here is because if you run the test and something goes wrong, you're not breaking your donation page, right? If something goes wrong, you're not breaking it. But if something goes right, it's almost directly connected to money because it's literally sending people to the donation page. It's like a perfect balance of risk and reward. And usually it's easier to run tests here because again, you're not breaking your donation page. You're just sending more people to it, okay? So some cases it just involves changing a link or a button. Like I'm gonna show you 5 examples, okay? Check it out. This is a navigation of a site. Can you see the donate button anywhere on the top? I mean, it's there. It's here, by the way. But all they did is they add a little orange, a little white. Guess what? 18% increase in clicks. Okay? Or 19, actually. Next, this experiment. It's in a banner, and then we bring it down. Or we didn't bring it down, the organization brought it down. Check it out. By making it more visible, 37% more clicks. Here's another one. Donate, I can't even find it. This organization, they just followed the advice. They had a little contrast. Oh my gosh, 170%. Oh, it's getting better, it's getting better. Here's another one. I don't even see a donate button. They add the donate button. Now they're getting more donations because there are people, they're coming to the site, they already want to donate, they just can't find the page, right? And here's another one. This is, again, you're more likely to see an increase in clicks, but this guy, this group, 190% increase in donations, all they did was that. And it's not just the navigation, folks. You could have an ad, okay? Give now versus get your CD for a gift of any amount here. Do you see what this did? This reinforced, okay, what they were going to get before it asked for money. It's a psychological thing. I'll take it, guys. I'll take it. Oh, here's another one. This is a homepage banner. Change a life. Shop now. Kind of sounds, this is one of those things where you can buy a gift on behalf of somebody, right? All they did was clarify what that meant. Guess what? More donations. Listen, you're going to get the deck. But how do you do this, John? This is great. All this wonder. I want to start testing now. How do I ensure my challengers teach me something? How do I get into Google Analytics? How do I set up a test? How do I calculate confidence levels? Do I document? How do I share it so that people will ultimately learn? Do I get some wins and gains very quickly? What are the top tests? What are the other 4? I promised you all these resources. Guess what? Today, we are launching a new course online for free for you, A/B testing and optimizations for nonprofits. Okay? By the end of that course, not only do you get the practical stuff, but you're actually going to get walkthroughs. We're going to go into Google Analytics so you can follow us. We're going to go into Google Optimize so you can follow us. Okay? We're going to go into the calculation tools that you have access to so you can follow us do it, right? So check it out. You'll get a session here on strategy. You get a session on building a challenger, a couple of sessions on how to just go live, even if you've never used it before, how to validate and share, and of course, the other 4 of those top 5 tests. And it's all available to you right now, okay, at this link. If you have trouble registering for it, let us know. But nextafter.com/testing, you've pretty much already been through session 1. We showed you most of it today. Start with session 2. But I just want to encourage you, again, use this. All the resources that you need, we're going to email you some more, but all the resources, everything that you possibly need, okay, is right there. in this course available to you, and it's going to help you get to where you need to be, to help you start testing, to help you start being that doctor for your organization. So I just want to encourage you to do that. So again, what do you do first? You start brainstorming. I encourage you to go to session 2, log on, and go to that course. It's free. Now, I'm taking a look at the time. We're right at 2 o'clock Central, 3 o'clock Eastern. I don't know if we have any time for any questions. I don't know if there's a way to queue up the questions. I don't know if we have Nathan. Is Nathan on the line?
Hello, hello.
There
hey,
he
John,
is. Nathan, do
me?
we have time for 1 or 2 questions? I know we're like cutting it close.
Sure. Well, if you need to go, if you've got a meeting to rush off to, you can feel free to log out and head that way. We don't want to keep you. But if you can stick around, we do have a few questions that people sent in to me via email leading up to the webinar. And if you have questions that you have thought of through this webinar as John's been talking, feel free to send them into the little chat window on the right side of your screen. And we'll try to answer those too. We'll kind of stick around as long as we have some questions. We'll try to get those answered. And then if there are additional follow-up questions that you have, we can follow up via email as well. But John, one question that came in from Terry via email, she says this. She says, what is the best way to segment and test when you have an email list size of only about 1,500 people? Is that even possible?
You know, you're going to be kind of hard pressed, okay, with a list that size, right? And I know segmentation is ideal. Like if you have a large enough list to segment, right, that's ideal. But with a list that size, I think you're better off trying to find the common denominators within that list, right? So, and some of us, you know, especially if we have small sample sizes, we're limited to do that. But there's still a lot that you can learn, right? It just forces you to think a little bit differently, okay? There are tools, we're working on a tool right now that will help you understand the kind of difference you can detect with a sample size of 1,500. So what I mean by that is, let's just say I want to run a test that's statistically significant, okay? How big of a gain do I have to get in order to, to be able to detect that with such a small sample size? There's a tool out there that we're working on right now, so stay tuned. But listen, I wouldn't suggest trying to segment it up in little bits. What I would say is look at your audience and look for common denominators, okay? And try and make a difference on that level. And then let's just say that you've got a really radical idea for a particular segment that you have. And that segment is maybe half of that. Maybe it's 700 or 800, okay? You have a chance of validating that experiment, but only if you make a big difference, okay? And that's to validate it. That's to be, I'm 1 in 10 chance of being wrong. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't run the test, okay? Just know what confidence level you're at and know what your risk of being wrong is. So even if you have a smaller segment, and let's just say I'm just prototyping, okay? I don't really need a 95%, I only need 80%. Well, guess what? You couldn't possibly run that test as long as you go into it with the correct mindset that you're just prototyping. This isn't some really huge risk. We're just trying to see if this is the right direction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's good, John. Thank you. And Terry, if you have follow-up questions about that, feel free to send either of us an email. We'll continue to talk about that. She did ask one other question, and she's wondering, you're kind of hitting on this a little bit. You talked about it a little bit. There's a lot more in the course about this question too, but she says this, is it not true that you can only change one variable at a time?
Oh, I love this. I absolutely love this question. So you don't have to change just one variable at a time. In fact, we have an entire section in session 3 of the course that talks about how to do this. We call this a variable cluster, okay? And we have an entire section on variable clusters and how to do them properly in session 3. But let me just give you the short of it, okay? Think of it this way. If you're going to go to a party and you know that this person loves cake, they love vanilla cake, they want a cake, they want coconut shavings, that's just going to knock them out, right? They're going to be so happy with you. Do you go to the party with just eggs? No. Do you go to the party with just vanilla? No. Do you go to the party? No. You have to make the cake, which means you have to combine the eggs, the vanilla, the flour, the sugar. You have to combine them, but in a very specific, intentional way. It's a recipe in order to achieve that effect, in order to get the cake. So in testing, You can do the same thing. You can say, I'm going to change the headline, the subheadline, and the body copy, but it's all going to say the same thing. It's going to be reinforcing this principle that I think is going to make a difference. Because sometimes, if you don't use all of that space to make the point, it's not enough for people. Did you know that I ran a test in Google AdWords? My one treatment, I changed only the headline. No difference. Second treatment, I only changed the description. No difference. But when I took those same exact changes and combined them together, I had a 40% increase in clicks. What? But that just goes to show that sometimes you cannot achieve a specific psychological effect unless you combine things in a very intentional way. So yes, it is possible to combine things and to test and get that result, but you need to be very intentional about it, and it needs to be very clear to somebody when you're explaining it. Go to session 3. We get into a lot of great detail about that.
That's great. Thank you, John. A couple questions that came in from Carlos here. And again, if you have questions and you're still listening here, feel free to drop them in this chat and we'll try to answer them. But a few more that we still have. And these are not specifically related to testing. They're more just broader online fundraising questions. But what's your advice if someone is just starting out accepting online donations? They're just trying to get an online fundraising program off the ground. Is testing a possibility? And how would you build a program based around data-driven decision-making?
If you have absolutely nothing, you're really in no place to lose, okay? Because there's no tracking, it's just black box. At the end of the day, they're like, oh, in the back end, we have, but even if you don't have a donation page, it's just black box, right? So you're in a place, I would just start doing stuff. I would use some of the research-driven kind of tactics and techniques that we have available and use that to try and drum up interest for your organization. So, create an ebook, create something. We've got a whole course on that, right? To get more people coming to your site. Okay, what you want to do is you want to start getting some movement and activity. And then after you get enough activity, and you'll see in session 2 that we have, we look at the amount of activity that you have in Google Analytics. Once you get enough activity, then you could say, you know what, I'm seeing a lot of activity, but nobody's donating. Now you can test, okay? So the key is a lot of times, like people say, they'll want to run a test and they'll be like, I want to test my donation page, but guess what? We usually don't run that test first. Why? Because not a lot of organizations have enough traffic on their donation page to run a test that will get a statistically significant result. So what we do instead is we test increasing traffic to the page. And then as we get more traffic to that page, now we can run a test. So my advice to you is use all the resources that we have to start drumming up interest for your organization, start drumming up traffic, okay? Install Google Analytics. Make sure that you can kind of see what's going on, and then after you've done a little bit of that work, you got people interested, that's where you can do your testing. But here's another thing though. You can test in Facebook and Google where you're paying money to get traffic to your site. They already have the tools right there in their system. You just have to learn how to use it, right? And they've got some great tutorials on that. So that would be my advice to you there, is that if you can't test on your site, you can still, there's a bazillion traffic on Facebook, right? Lots of traffic on Google. You can still test that traffic and use it to help you get better. So that's what I would recommend too. If you really want to test, you can test there as well. It's just, you got to pay a little bit more for it. It's not necessarily free. Does that make sense?
That's great. Thanks, John. Carlos, I know you had a couple other questions. I'll send you a follow-up email regarding those because we're just about out of time here. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. Thank you so much, John, for all the work you put into this course. I think it's going to be a really cool resource for people. Again, the link to get to that course, you can activate it for free today, right now. You can go to nextafter.com/testing, enroll in that course. It's 6 sessions. John will kind of guide you all the way through the process of dreaming up what you should test, trying to figure out how do you validate these tests, learn from it, document it, share it, the whole work. So please use that course, share it with your colleagues, and start building this culture of optimization and testing into your organization. John, any parting words?
No parting words. Just here's the thing. Don't be afraid. It's not scary. It really isn't. It's not a scary thing. I just want to encourage you. You can do it. Okay. Sometimes the only thing that's limiting you is maybe you want a 95% level of confidence. You can only achieve a 90 or something like that. But my point is you don't have to be an expert to start. Just get started, okay? As long as you focus on the right things, stick to a strategy, use what we have, you're guaranteed to almost get some interest and to start getting people to put more resources into it. They'll take you more seriously. Just use our resources.
It's great. Thank you so much, Jon. Thank you for listening, everyone. Thank you for giving us a little bit of your time today. Enjoy the course, and best of luck as you start testing. Take care.
Take care, everyone.